Hi, everybody, and welcome to week 5. In week 5, we're going to be looking at analysis tradecraft, and that's going to be analysis of information and intelligence that is clear and that makes accurate judgments so they are insightful, timely, and relevant. For successful analysis to occur, critical thinking is a must. It has to be central. An analyst must think broadly, think outside the box, to use a tired phrase, and incorporate imaginative perspectives. Analysts should engage in all of the following in order to engage in full critical thinking. So first, there must be clarity of assessment and argument. They have to determine the relevance of the data or the subject matter, utilize depth that accounts for the complexity of the subject matter with active steps to avoid oversimplification. They should make use of breadth, which is the ability to consider various perspectives surrounding the subject matter, and utilizing precision, which incorporates specific detail to support your argument. Analysis has often been a solitary activity, but the intelligence community is taking steps away from that practice to incorporate more of a collaborative approach because collaboration seems to open up to more ideas, more brainstorming, and better identification of intelligence. So there's a multitude of ways to engage in collaborative analysis. And the first is Intellipedia, which is a collaborative tool that's based on the internet and wiki technologies that allow analysts to engage in the rapid real-time sharing of information, of ideas between professionals for greater analysis and of information and intelligence. Rather than just freestyling, right? Freestyling like just riffing and coming up with ideas on your own, which used to be common practice. There's been a shift towards utilizing structured and analytical techniques. So we're going to run through some of the techniques that are utilized. And the first is a key assumptions check. And that is, the fact that we all make assumptions and often our assumptions remain unstated, right? They stay up here. And they often remain unchallenged. Okay, which is dangerous to intelligence analysis because it often leads to things like mirror imaging and it introduces bias into our analysis. So we need to do a key assumptions check where we review our assumptions analytically. We evaluate them, which allows us to avoid jumping to conclusions or getting that tunnel vision. It keeps us from disregarding important intelligence that doesn't fit with our original assumptions, and it makes us more receptive to eyewitness tips, and it helps us to find contradictions in our assumptions. There's also analysis of competing hypotheses. Analysts often have a hard time evaluating a wide range of hypotheses or possibilities. We tend to choose a air quotes favorite and get tunnel vision on that favorite and just sort of fight for it endlessly because it's our favorite. And instead of adopting a favorite and battling for it, the analysis of competing hypotheses is where we create a matrix of all the competing possible hypotheses, and we present factual information and we try to debunk each one. Because the idea here is rather than just championing one and sticking to it no matter what, we create a list of all of them, we look at the facts, and then we look at what factual information allows us to knock certain hypotheses off the list. Based on the factual information we have, this hypothesis doesn't work. Let's eliminate it and work with what's left. The overall goal here is to disprove hypothesis, to eliminate possibilities, and it leaves fewer legitimate hypotheses to focus on. This way, we don't dismiss or ignore other competing hypotheses because it's not one of our air quotes favorites. There's also scenario planning. So scenario planning is envisioning any number of possible situations, even ones that are completely wild and they appear crazy, they appear implausible. But by doing this, it allows the intelligence community to create a plan of response to a multitude of situations and to create plans or to take preventative measures to stop negative things from happening before they actually arise. So if we look back to 9/11, if we did have intelligence that certain members of Al-Qaeda were here in the United States and they were taking flying lessons, not just flying lessons, but learning to fly commercial aircraft, prior to them crashing into buildings. None of us could have envisioned that, right? I mean, that was just something that didn't exist. It wasn't on anybody's landscape. But if we had used this scenario planning and we sat down in a room of people and said, okay, what could they possibly be doing with these commercial airline pilots' licenses? right? What possible methods? Maybe this would have been identified, right? Even though it's because at the time it would have sounded wildly implausible, but months later on September 11th, it became 100% plausible. So scenario planning is an option. Contrarian methods are another one. This gets back to groupthink, and the idea that contrarian methods are often suppressed. That if you are outside of the majority opinion in a group and you have this idea and say, hey, maybe it's not what you guys think it is, maybe it's XYZ, because you're sort of the lone standout, that's usually very easily dismissed. And contrarian methods are looking to avoid that side effect of groupthink, so that people presenting ideas to groups will the contrarian methods will purposefully introduce dissenting ideas. So all the ideas that we would immediately sort of knee-jerk reject because it's just one or two people presenting them, we say, no, bring those back, and let's sort of force feed them to the group, so that they're not dismissed outright, so that they can be properly evaluated, which may change perspectives, and it may take those people who we're presenting them and immediately dismissed, but it may make them make their case in a more thorough capacity, thus bringing more intelligence to the forefront. There's also devil's advocacy, which is a practice. We've all done this, right, in our personal lives, and in many a classroom, where we express or we focus on an individual's point and we argue a point that, you don't necessarily agree with. It's the opposite point, but you do it to check the accuracy of the original point. It's sort of, dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's that say, yeah, we think it's this, but just in case, what if it's this, right? Which we don't think is possible or likely, but we better go over this just in case, so we don't miss anything. So we evaluate all possible options, even the ones that aren't currently favored. There's the Team A, Team B approach, which is utilized when a group can't come to a consensus on an issue, when there are two strongly held beliefs, maybe the group is split down the middle and this side believes one thing and the other side believes another, and we can't come to a consensus. We're at an impasse. So what we do is each side drafts all of the points in their argument, and they present their argument, the strongest points of their argument, to the other side that doesn't agree. And maybe once you break down that argument with those strongest points, you'll bring a few people to your side, or people will change their perspectives, etc. There's, high impact, low impact probability analysis. This is utilized to assess situations that are incredibly unlikely, but were they to occur would be overwhelmingly catastrophic. So it's not likely it's going to happen, but we have to evaluate it and we have to come up with a plan of action, because on the off chance that it does, the outcome will be disastrous and catastrophic. Again, it's very unlikely to occur, but by going down this road, it helps the analyst identify processes that may be red flags or identifiers of something that is highly unlikely, but also incredibly catastrophic to come. So it identifies those red flags, and it makes those red flags, it gets it on people's radars to keep an eye out for these. And if you come across one of these red flags, we need to know immediately. We need to discuss it immediately, because it may be this high impact, low probability issue. And finally, there's analytical software. This is something that we're seeing more and more in every field, that especially with the amount of information and data that comes in, the human mind just can't manage all of it, but a computer can manage all of it much more accurately and much faster. So there's more and more software, and of course we're going to see with the introduction of AI that is going to be able to evaluate and identify the issues on the mass amount of raw data that comes in more easily and faster than the human mind, or even than a group of human minds.